Gary, it's my understanding that you have something you want to talk about.
Yeah, this episode of Bonfireside Chat is brought to you by me.
Yeah.
I wanted to so a couple of things real quick. As Cole knows, we have a new show on the network called Teenage Dirtbags that me and Brayden are doing. The long-awaited annual Christmas special came out on Christmas Day, but it's launching near the end of January. So brand new show. We're getting some of the bags, and it's kind of like Abject Suffering for music videos, but not really. But it's if you like the pitch, or you like me, or you like Brayden, you should listen to that. And it would mean a lot to me if everybody listened to this, at least checked it out. May not be for you. Great if you did. And then once we get that up on iTunes and everything, when a show is new, ratings and reviews and all that stuff is very important.
Yeah.
Are very important.
I encourage you to give it a listen. It is definitely a worthy successor to the pitch.
Yeah, it's weird. It is good though, and we've recorded a bunch more, and it just gets weirder. Second thing, I came back with Infinity Engineers after taking most of Fall off. So if you like, I don't talk about it much on the shows, but if you like, if you're like, why won't Watch Our Fireballs do Baldur's Gate? Shut up! I'm doing Baldur's Gate. Go to Duckfeed.tv /Infinity Engineers, and you will see my blog on that series and other games. And I'm almost done with Baldur's Gate and moving on to Arcanum next. So check that out.
Yeah, it is.
I'd appreciate it.
It is a long-form look at those CRPGs that Gary and many like him know and love.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, it's just like a written version of that. And then finally, I didn't talk about tons, but in fall I put out a record, another Mario Paint album. And that's called 4VG by VG. And you can buy that at duckfeed.tv /store. It's $5. You should check that out too.
Yeah.
So pretty much check out all of my stuff, and then also check out Cole stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like in the last month or so, I have a lot of Gary stuff that I want to highlight, because I don't talk about them a lot on the show because it makes me feel dirty.
Check all those things out. Duckfeed.tv, as usual, is the springing off point for all of that.
Yeah, and say something nice to Cole on Twitter. It's like every time you buy my record, say like, Cole, I like how you smell usually, or like, Cole, you got a good taste in outfit. And that will balance the scales.
I'm kind of insulted that you assume I need that.
It's something fine, like everybody likes having.
I know.
Like,
I know.
We're amateur podcasters. We traffic in nice things said on Twitter.
Yes, we do.
That is the currency that we all share.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks everybody. Thank you, and Happy New Year, and thank you for liking Gary and liking Cole.
Teenage Dirtbags, Infinity Engineers, 4VG by VG.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
Seeker of fire, you know not the depth of dark within you. It grows deeper still, the more flame you covet. Flame, oh, flame. Fire came to be, and with it, disparity. Heat and cold, life and death, light and dark. Dark was seen as a curse. Shadow is not cast, but born of fire. And the brighter the flame, the deeper the shadow. Inherit fire and harness the dark. Such is the calling of a true leader.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a cursed favorite.
And this week we are talking about the Throne of Want and concluding Dark Souls 2 as we know it right now here at the beginning of 2015.
Yes, this is all the Dark Souls 2 that's available now. However, for much of the last third of the season, we've had this looming specter of there's going to be more content that makes it hard to draw conclusions.
Yes.
And I think we'll probably talk about that in general when we do our either this episode or when we do our final wrap up about how that kind of weird structure and the weird way that Dark Souls 2 has not been a complete product for most of its life. So that's a very odd thing that is making life difficult for us. But it's fine. And as you heard, we're joined by nobody. As is traditionally, we do these wrap up episodes solo bolo like we do with the intro episodes.
Yeah. So previously, we finished out the Crown of the Ivory King DLC, and we amassed all 4 of the crowns that are extant right now, right? And now it's time for us to take it back to Vendrick and say, hey, look how good we did.
Yeah, look how many hats we can wear at once. Look how we're a free iOS game where we have to balance these crowns. It's a good idea for like a free iOS app where it's just like the crown of the adjective king, and they just keep getting added onto a chosen undead.
Oh yeah,
and you just have to balance them.
It's like Topple Tower.
Yeah, like Topple Tower.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Take that idea, people.
Run with it.
Yeah. So you head back before we actually finish the game. Now that we have all the crowns, we can talk to Vendrick, and he's in the crypt. He's been giving us like pretty awesome dialogue and stuff in between all of these things that kind of draw some stuff together. But this final one, he gives his own kind of like account, and it's a little bit more definitive. He names the daughters of Manus by name, which is all things that we've suspected and have been kind of said through item descriptions, but it's like everyone's on the same page here. And Nishandra is one of the daughters of Manus. Like, he straight up underlines it.
Yeah. He also outlines what his folly was, talking about how everybody is led to believe that harnessing the flame will cure the curse, which was his aim partially, right? And attempting to be so powerful. Here, at the edge of his deathbed, he recognizes, why all of that was actually just false, and wouldn't actually lead to something. And he kind of leaves it off to you to say, find strength and the rest will follow.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of, makes way for you. And now that you have the crowns, Vendrick, does some magic on them. And if you're wearing one of them, you no longer hollow upon dying. Mm-hmm. So this is, I was curious to talk to you. We haven't really talked about this at all, like off mic or anything. I was curious to talk to you about this because like this was bothersome to me because on a very initial glance, like it feels like it's huge. Like, oh, you have cured the curse, right? Like you no longer, but you don't. Yeah, like that's not, you just don't get more hot dog like.
Yeah, you ameliorate it. Like you are, it's, we just wrapped up our saga on the Elder Scrolls. It's, you still have Corpus, but you're not a tumor monster, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And, that this is the folly of power, right? Like you have this thing that, gets you there. And Vati in his wrap up video says, yes, even curing the curse is a curse in and of itself because this only applies to you. It only turns inward, and you still have to watch the entire rest of the world hollow and die.
Right. Right. And like it into the kind of grander, Dark Souls 2, the initial setup for the story before anything got kind of complicated and scrambled. Like, there are rumors that if you come to this land, you can cure the curse. Your character, whoever he is in the beginning, which we don't ever have that information, and that's the goal. And for the character, you kind of do. Like you don't do it. It's not correct. Like it's not a world changing thing, but you kind of do it for you. Yeah. So it's like, it makes sense why there are those rumors. Like that kind of completes that circle. Like why people think that if you come to Drang Lake, you can cure the curse, why you came to Drang Lake and stuff. Like this is why, I think. Yeah.
It's a monkey's paw kind of thing. A little bit like that. It's shades of that, the shrine of Amana where the Milfinito can, unhollow you, but it doesn't, stop you from coming back to life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even this, you're still coming back to life after you die. You just don't, turn green and then turn into a hot dog.
Yeah. Yep. And also there's nothing to do other than just go kill stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can't go retire with the hags.
Yep. You can just go back to things betwixt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard people get really upset, like, oh, what's the point of having this if there's no more game after it? And this doesn't feel too dissimilar from like defeating everything, doing everything you need to do to get the Knights of the Round. By that point, every single thing is irrelevant. Like this is there's a long and storied history of making you work really hard to get items that are now irrelevant because of the point of the game that you're at, where you can get them.
And this is like two things thoughts it gives me. Like one, who has completed all of these DLCs actually gives a shit about not having to unhollow. Like, you can buy at this point, if you can do that, you could stay stocked up in life rings forever if you want to. And, or you probably have enough human effigies to last, to the end times. But two, like, this is stronger than the Knights of the Round thing because this actually does tie into the story, and that's where that criticism always kind of fell flat for me, is that, like, the point of this isn't to give you a gameplay advantage.
Right.
You know, it's not like, oh, I did all this cool work, now I have a really cool, powerful item.
Yeah.
It's to tie into the greater story. It's just not 100% successful at that.
Right.
So maybe it's not immediately obvious.
The effect of the crown isn't really the important thing here. The little cutscene of him taking the crown and doing something to it and handing it to you, that is, you know, like that's the important bit, that he deems you, you know, worthy to be the new monarch, with everything that entails, the ability to, you know, the ability, the responsibility, the burden to carry all of those souls and decide what to do, you know, with, you know, the throne, really.
Right. And you could do that before too, you know, but now you have Vendrick's blessing and you're slightly better at it. I'm so, like, I was really on the page after this happened of, like, I was on the that's it page, not because I think that it's like I wanted more gameplay reward. It was because I wanted that, like, I wanted those deficiencies in the cure to be addressed. You know, at least somebody to say, like, oh, well, this sucks. You know, like, this isn't great. Like, I can't go hollow anymore, but who gives a shit? I can't save Lucatiel. Like, she's still going to go hollow. Like, everybody's still, you know, I'm still alone in this shitty world. And that's what makes me so happy about Scholar of the First Sin coming out, because it does seem addressed to just kind of patch over some lore things. Yeah. And we talked about that. Or it was actually on the live stream. It wasn't on the episode. Right. But somebody asked us about that on the live stream, which you can check out on Duckfeed Live in like a month. And you should, because sometimes we talk about Dark Souls. But I want that patching in and that patching over pretty badly at this point.
Me too.
Just because it has felt like this kind of extended tease a little bit, like having the DLCs come out and thinking like, oh, okay, this didn't answer all the questions. This is going to answer all the questions. And it's like, well, nope, that just like added more questions. And this is going to answer all the questions. And this is going to answer the questions. And even though all of the three of the DLCs did something really, really awesome on their own, and many of them extended the story on their own, none of them like actually gave us a to Z thing that you can put together, really.
What makes the tease even worse is the fact that, you know, especially in Ivory King and then with Vendrick's, little exposition dumps, this is the most, you know, explicit detail we've gotten about what's happening in the story, like outside of Nishandra, boldly lying to our face, or the Emerald Herald, you know, speaking to us in riddles, right? Like, it seems like if you just listen to the tone and you look at the content of what's there, it seems like they should be answering questions at a mile a minute, but they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. And that ties into that whole, and Vadi points this out as well. And we'll probably cite that a couple times. Like, I'm not necessarily like on board with every single conclusion he makes, but like he's one of the very few people I've seen online to discuss the end game in a way that isn't just, you know, dismissive, right, you know, and kind of jerky. Is that he was talking about like that with item descriptions, how many of them end with questions and stuff. And that seems to be the Dark Souls 2 MO, is just kind of like adding an air of mystery through uncertainty, as opposed to Dark Souls 1, or a better way to do it, which is add certainty about something I don't understand yet, and then leave me to figure out the question, but tell me a definitive answer. This gives me the questions, but doesn't give me any definitive answers. It's like the backwards, it's like the Jeopardy version.
Exactly. Dark Souls 1. Yeah, omission will always be more powerful. Yeah. As opposed to what kind of feels like sleight of hand a little bit. Yeah.
And all this said, like, this is you know, we talked about a lot, like the reputation of Dark Souls 2 and kind of how it, like, it's not great. And like, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm not going to continually say it because I've been, you know, accused of white knighting for the game and stuff and all of this stuff. Like, I really love this game. Like, it is, you know, one of my favorite games to come out last year. It's great. And individual things it does are nigh perfect. You know, like, there are things about it that are just like so good and so great, but I just really want it to be a little bit more, and they're so close to doing it. And they've been teasing me so long that I'm just like, I'm like edging. You know that thing where you're
you don't have to describe edging.
No, just for the listeners. Okay. You know, edging. Don't look it up. So, but it's like I've just been edging too long.
Yeah, you know? I've just been waiting for the bow on it. You know, like,
exactly.
Everything is in the box, and the box looks pretty good. I just need a bow on it. right?
Or can't open it.
Yeah, I mean, like, just all of this stuff I kind of understand in really broad strokes. Like, I feel like I emotionally understand, like the themes that are in play, and they're really resonant, right? And we're going to discuss what some of those themes are as we talk about what the throne is and kind of the motivations of the individual players here in about 10 minutes. Like, just all of that is good, but the problem is that it isn't shareable, which I hate that word, but like, you can't communicate to somebody, like, oh, it's this notion of a cycle. And are we going to pick up something from this one that we can use the next time? And is that a metaphor? Like it goes from zero to wank like that.
Yeah.
And like, I would love to have some kind of, unifying, even just sentence, outside of like the dull ember that actually explains like the mechanics of this universe and the way that it kind of affects and churns up the individual players inside of it.
It's really weirdly meta, because it ends up to feel this conflicted about this story requires having been exposed to Dark Souls 1. I think, because otherwise, like, it does, when we keep saying it doesn't follow, like on face value, it does follow. Like the story is like, there's this, this demon essentially who had these little fragments. They went off and corrupted these kings, and this king ran away to try to get away from her, and you go defeat her, and you're the new king now. Yeah, like it does, like you can break it down into like Super Mario Brothers levels of simplicity, and it will be a story. It's just like we expect there to be so much more, and that theming and like evocative details are still really present that make that unsatisfying. Yeah. Like it is a story from A to Z, but it's like a story from like A to D, and makes sense. But there's all these hints of like later secret letters of the alphabet that you never even heard of.
And, like one of the things that disappoints me is the fact that it doesn't answer any questions about the way the broader world works, right? Like there are, definite things like, what is the curse? What actually is the Throne of One? Like all those things that just exist as symbols. And that was all more satisfying in Dark Souls 1 because it felt like we were, we were coming close to like dealing with what those effects were. I don't know if that's just because we were working with this pantheon of what were essentially creator gods. I don't know. Like, it feels like we are a couple of degrees removed from the key players in what makes all this work, and actually would possibly provide some answers about these mysteries that might actually, frustrate us if they're left unanswered.
Everything about the way that Dark Souls 2 handles its story lends itself to a short story, which we talked about that before, but like that's what they're interested in doing here. And like that's reasonable, and that's a good thing for a game to be. Yeah. But it just doesn't, it's not what they did before, and they add enough connective tissue to make it unsatisfying. Like, not just the DLCs, which operate as short stories, but even like when we were talking about the different spokes, like, like you go down this spoke from the main thing, and this tells the story of the Iron King. Like, this is what kind of ruler he was. This is how he dealt with the undead. This is his family troubles. These are the things that happened with his, with his either possibly his son, with Queen Mytha, or his former queen. Like, that tells a story on its own, but it's just one story. And the game is full of those little like just individual stories. Yeah, that are all great. Yep. Like, here's Duke Seldora, and like, he became obsessed with spiders to the degree that like he overran his kingdom, and like had a spider in a cage that grew up into this gigantic mutant. Basically, like they're all really cool. Yeah, and to a degree, they all, if you look hard enough, you can tie them all back into how those different stories reflect on Vendrick, and like how all of them set each other apart and set each other off in terms of this notion of desire, right? Like, what happens when a person is given power over a realm, right? Like, all of that is like satisfying, and each of those speaks to that, but I don't know. It's just that this is maybe the first time we've encountered it. I don't know. Yeah, and as we're talking about it, I'm like close to like talking myself into liking it. Again, like I'm like, it's just like, like if I think about it in those terms, like here's a series of short stories about power. Yeah. Like then I can get on board with it. It's just the fact that it has so many storytelling conventions left over from a larger thing. Yeah. That like just make it tough. So yeah, this is like an episodic Tales from Drang Lake, right? Yeah, Tales from do it, Telltale. Telltale. That would be amazing because there's like no dialogue. Yep. Or anything. Yeah, just do it like the cutscenes already are. Do it as just tell the story through poses and action. That would be really, really funny. I would get that, even though it'd probably be worse. Like, it suits itself less than Borderlands, but I'd still rather play it. So,
oh boy. So do you want to talk about the actual throne?
Yeah, let's talk about these fights and the throne itself.
Yeah. So you have the King's Ring, and we've used it to unlock the door to Aldius, and we've used it to unlock the door to get further into the Fortress of Fallen Giants. Sorry, the Forest of Fallen Giants. That's actually a pretty nice slip. Here 20 episodes later, I finally realize how poetic that name is. We use this to open the one that's by the basement bonfire under Drang Lake, right? Mm-hmm. Which leads into this massive underground cavernous chamber with a winding staircase that to my eye actually looks a little bit like a skeletal version of the Kiln Run.
I've read that online before, and I went through it again to look at it, and I don't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it at all. Like, I've seen so many people online that are just like, this is obviously the place where the Kiln of the First Flame was. It doesn't seem obvious to me at all.
I don't know if it's that obvious. I think that it just reminds me of it because of the structure and the color choices that they've made.
And it takes place at the same place in the game, and like it fulfills kind of the same purpose. Mm-hmm. Of giving you like a moment of relative quiet before the boss fights.
Yeah.
But like so I agree with you there. And then color wise, like, yes. But there's nothing about it that makes me think that that's clearly the same place geographically, I've read that opinion everywhere.
I don't buy into that.
Yeah. I think people are just getting their wires crossed of like, oh, I'm running back and forth on my way to a boss.
Yeah.
This has to be the same thing, but like, it doesn't look like it.
Yeah. It's Lord.
Like
they've got Lordran fever, Gary.
Yeah, the only cure is more Lordran. It just doesn't look anything like it. Like I went back and played this, and I went back and found some videos of the Kiln of the First Flame online to remind myself of and that was like a much brighter, much ashier, like, outdoors.
Yeah,
area.
Like if you look at the actual assets, it actually looks more like the run up to Broom Tower. Than anything.
Yeah. Agreed. So it does remind you. It has the same kind of gameplay function, and I think thematically it's supposed to be recalling it, but I don't think literally it's supposed to be recalling it. So you head on through here, and then just real quick footnote bitching about having to put on the King's Ring every time I walk through these doors, and then the Emerald Herald is here.
Mm-hmm. If you have the Giant's Blessing.
Yes. Well, yeah, because you can come here before that. It's a real weird little nod to nonlinearity. Like, I thought, like, once I went and did the giant stuff and then came back here, I was like, oh, I could have just went and beat the game right away. Mm-hmm. But you can't. No. Like, you have to go do that giant stuff in order to make Nashandra appear in a bit. But if you have the Giant's Blessing, if you're here for, like, the final run-up, then the Emerald Herald shows up.
Yes, and she's here. She finally pulls her hood down, revealing not just the top of her head, but also, a little bit of her motivation. But it's still relatively archaic. We learn more about her origin than her actual aims.
Yeah, and we can. Do you want to put in the dialogue here?
My journey is already complete. My name is Shanalot. The dragon gave me this name, for I was born with none. I was born of dragons, contrived by men, by ones who would cozen fate herself. They are the ones who created me, but they failed. I did not come out as intended. Fate would not be bested, and men were cursed once again. If you proceed, Nashandra will come after you, knowing that you will take the throne and link the fire. She covets the first flame and the great soul. Put Nashandra to rest, and then...
Yeah, so basically, she kind of gives her origins, and this is stuff that we've already talked about a little bit. But the idea that she is, born of dragons and men, and the idea, or the most obvious thing to me is that she was this creation of Aldia. Mm-hmm. And the idea being that this is some kind of thrust to make somebody who is immune to the curse. Yeah. Or in curing the curse, make somebody who's part dragon, because we know the dragons are immune to the curse. They exist outside the cycle.
Right. So trying to find a way to take elements of the dragons, which he has been, researching and possibly turning himself into, in order to basically inoculate humanity against this thing. Right.
Right. Yeah. So the next generation, everybody who ends up, all of Shanalot's grandchildren.
Yeah.
Will end up.
Also, her name is Shanalot.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Again, though, it feels like a separate story to the main one. Like that's the Aldea short story, or like the Vendrick's Kingdom dealing with trying to use dragons to cure the curse short story.
Yeah, and it ties in. Like she is not, some would say manipulating you in order to put you on the throne. There is probably a lot of conspiracy theorizing around what her actual aims are, but we can talk about what happens, with her final dialogue I can give my 2 cents on that. But there's a reason that she is here. Is this the true one, or is the true Shanalot standing outside the area? I forget.
I always thought the true Shanalot was outside the area.
Yeah.
But there could be 2 true Shanalots. Like she could have just traveled here as well.
Oh, yeah.
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 I can't remember because the voices are slightly different and there's something else different about them as well.
Yeah.
But I don't remember this one specifically.
But the experiment failed. I wonder if it's failed, if they knew it failed because she has the curse herself.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if she is an undead or not. That is never spoken to.
Or it failed because it's not transmittable, similar to the crown.
Yeah. Like,
because she says, like, it failed, fate would not be bested, men were cursed once again.
Right.
Like, so everyone, like, it didn't cure everybody. Mm-hmm. It still happened. Yeah. So the idea being maybe, like, this is just, like, a similar to the crown.
Yeah. She warns you, like, as you make your way forward, Nashandra will follow close in tow. Because you are essentially opening the door to what is her ultimate prize. Exactly.
Yeah, this is a classic villain kind of gambit thing, mm-hmm. where she lets you open up, like she Sephiroths you. Like you led her right to the black materia.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and you walk down this massive staircase, and you can summon some old friends here, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of which is pretty good, and one of which is real trash. Because there's summon signs for Benhart and Vengarl. Mm-hmm. I think Vengarl only appears if you defeated his body.
Oh.
I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
But I thought that was the case.
Yeah, I like that. I like it. I like the idea of that coming back, to benefit you if you've done that, because he wants you to do it.
And you freed him up, like freed up his consciousness or what have you. Mm-hmm. So that could not be true, but I believe that's true. Yeah. And he is trash in this fight. Benhart's really good though.
Oh,
if you need to summon somebody, but Vengarl always ends up dying for me.
I've never had that problem. Both of them have been pretty useful, especially in the Throne Watcher and Defender fight.
They're both very useful for that. I think that what I end up usually I don't come here and fight the Throne Watcher and Defender on their own. Like come here and just do the whole run. So by the time they've, Vengarl's been very softened up by the Throne Twins.
Well, let's talk about those Throne Twins.
I prefer twins.
Yeah.
Twins.
Yeah, twins. This is the Throne Watcher and the Throne Defender, kind of the last line of defense. These are... do you get the sense that these are companions or compatriots of not Vendrick, Bell guy? I forget his name.
Yeah, there are other knights. Yeah, like other knights, like similar to Velstadt.
Yeah.
You could get that impression, I think. Even though they're more corrupted at this point. Because I don't get the impression that these guys are actually working to keep. Well, I guess actually, now that I have to say that, like maybe these guys were just working to keep Nashandra out. Mm-hmm. As opposed to actually being on her side. Like this is just another line of defense that Vendrick set up.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In this massive Rube Goldberg machine of his most loyal men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for poor Reem. So these guys, this is just a 2-on-1 fight with 2 fights that individually would not be that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. Like, but just that you're fighting 2 of them is what makes it hard. And it's not... Like, we've done this before in Dark Souls, obviously, Ornstein and Smough, and it's not that thoughtfully designed,
right?
As Ornstein and Smough are. I don't think it's necessarily meant to be, but it's just it's kind of like they're both just very aggressive, and their moveset is different, but not as different as Ornstein and Smough's.
Right.
To make it Yeah.
Yeah, they're like there isn't one of them that is more apt or more able to make the close distance, right?
Yeah, they can both close distance. I mean, I guess the Throne Watcher is more acrobatic and a little bit faster.
Yeah.
But Throne Defender is not slow. He's just normal. So like it's like fast and normal versus fast and slow.
Right. And the trick to these guys, and what would probably confound somebody, is that if you kill one, like if you just focus all of your efforts on, say, the Throne Watcher, because he's a little bit more pesky, the Throne Defender will then revive him at full health.
Yeah, which that's a cool. I like that gimmick for a boss. Like you have to kill these guys equally. You can't actually focus fire, which is the traditional strategy for anytime you're facing multiple opponents. Just simplify and get down to one. You're punished for doing that.
Right.
You have to even out your damage. I have fought Nashandra alone. I cannot beat these guys on my own.
Right.
I've always had NPC help with this, just because it's too hard to heal. I find like if I'm fighting them on my own, and it's just very easy to be attacking one and have the other one come up and attack me while I'm not guarded.
Right.
The opportunities to attack are very rare.
Yep. And the fight gets harder as you go along because they eventually bless their weapons. I believe the Watcher blesses his with magic and the Defender blesses his with lightning, both of which are pretty hard to defend against. Like if you're, depending on what you have equipped. So one of them is going to do, more damage to you than it ought to at that point.
Yep. And that carries over if you make those weapons out of their boss souls. They come with a self buff. Yeah. Which is pretty significant. I know that the lightning one is actually like a fairly big PvP weapon. It is pretty decent. Yeah. Yes, there's not like so much to say about this fight. You can also trick them into falling off the ledge. They will fall off the ledge into nothing. And any kind of instant kill boss I like. Can I blow your mind with a bit of charity or trivia?
Sure.
Blow your mind with a bit of charity. You get a car. I don't know why I said that. Blow your mind with a bit of trivia. Check this shit out. Like I was watching an unrelated Dark Souls video, and I'll put it in the show notes. Do you know that the Ivory King, you can kill him by tricking him into standing by a door while one of your knights freezes it over? Isn't that great?
That's fantastic.
You can freeze him to death. Like that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea. Like I love finding new things in these games. Like there's an alternate kill for the Ivory King.
I wonder if that's intentional.
I imagine so. Because they wouldn't program the ice to do damage necessarily.
Right.
Without having a reason to do it. They would have just like shunted him over out of the way, but they decided to make it do damage.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. Like you can freeze him for eternity inside one of those portals instead of killing him. Like, yeah, that's great. I mean, it's not doing what you said you'd do.
Right. But it's dealing with the problem in your own way, your own much more cruel way.
Yeah. Thinking inside the box. Thinking you should be inside the box.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, that's real cool. So there are alternate kills for these guys as well. Is just my point. Like you can actually, if you skirt the edges, they will sometimes fall over.
Yeah, I'm not sure how deep those actually are. They have to be at least giant height. So
yeah, but it's enough to effectively make them dead.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. So after you defeat them, if you don't have the giant's kinship, which I did that this time with my New Game Plus run, I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to run down to the throne and see what happens if there's any sign. No, there isn't.
Yeah. There's just more to do and you don't know.
Yeah, it's just like a big empty room, and it's not like somebody stands outside like, wait a minute, you didn't go get didn't I make it clear enough for you? No, you didn't.
No, not remotely. Yeah.
I don't know where East is, Shanalot. Damn it.
Yeah, I know. Give me a HUD. I don't want a HUD. I've never come down here without it. Even though I know that you get slightly different cutscenes when the boss enters, depending on whether it's right after the Throne Watcher and Throne Defender fight.
Very slightly different.
But yeah, let's talk about Nashandra.
Brave undead. You have proven yourself to me. Now, be one.
This is a really weird final boss fight.
We'll talk about the intro for just a second.
Yeah.
Like, I love the way that so Nishandra, who looks like Lady Nito, she's wearing a skeleton dress. Like the way that she comes in and the way that she touches her scythe and walks past you and stuff. Like, I really like the way that it's animated.
Yeah,
like it is very sensual.
it's gross.
And I'm not going to say that hey, I popped 1,000 boners. Like, I've been edging during the entire Dark Souls 2 experience. Like, it is not. I'm not turned on by it when you say it's sensual, but it's like the animations and stuff are meant to be kind of erotic.
Yes,
a little bit, and I think that's really unsettling in a way that I'm sure they intended, and it works really well.
Yeah, the specific action that kind of unnerved me was the idea that she takes her index finger and then caresses the inside of her scythe blade.
Yeah,
that's the one. Like, she goes up the entire length. Like, she finger fucks that scythe.
Yeah, she really finger bangs. Finger bangs a bone scythe. The
scythe that she wants it. Yeah.
I want you and scythe me. So it's real gross. And it is meant to be. And you get this weird picture of there's nothing else to support this, but you get this. So she is the daughter of desire, right? That's how she got Vendrick. She's kind of like a honeypot. She cast her erotic wiles over him. If the other daughters of Manus are fear and anger and poison, I can't remember. Oh, she's anger. Fear, anger, and what's the other one? Loneliness.
Yeah.
Isolation. Then this is desire, which we all know, but it's manifesting as libido.
It's manifesting.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of interesting. That was a real put together moment for me. Because the whole time I was just what's Vendrick doing? Surely he would have seen through this. I talked to her in her human form, and I knew something was up.
Yeah.
But it's no, she just had him in a boner trance.
Yeah, which doesn't help our ability to it supports the Lady Macbeth narrative in a way that is kind of unsettling.
Oh yeah, a little bit gross. But if I'm already going to accept that she's the daughter of desire or what have you, or want, then this seems appropriate. At this point, it's hard for me to get more irked at the gender politics of Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
It is, and as I said before, I don't know why the name's escaping me, but the daughter who married the Ivory King did a lot to redeem me. Alsana did a lot to redeem that narrative for me and make it feel a little bit more dimensional.
Yeah. So Nishandra definitely, she works a lot better when you have a broader context to put her in, right? When it was just her, it was oh, this is just Manus reborn. But the idea that, she is a single aspect of it makes her far more interesting.
Yeah. And explains her, her motivations and stuff better.
Yeah.
If, you kind of look at these 4 different kingdoms and you see what would happen, or the way that these different aspects of humanity are inflicted upon them and kind of how that shakes out. And this one, where the game has kind of been her, she's trying to get to this thing and using you to kind of pursue it and open it up for her, ties into her aspect of humanity really well.
Yeah.
So
her fight is pretty easy, all things considered.
Yeah. Which that's a Dark Souls tradition.
Yep.
The last boss is not that difficult. I've died to her a bunch.
Me too.
I've had a hard time with it before, just because she emanates curse, which we know, from her portrait. And stuff that should have been Vendrick's first hint. I've never been so turned on that if a portrait is literally draining my health, that's a boner buster and a half. I cannot keep it up while being cursed. I try, but I can't do it. I need to get some Cialis or something.
Yep.
So
if curse lasts for longer than 4 hours, contact your local Emerald Herald.
Yep. Consult your local crown. So it is a weird boss fight, and there's not enough to it.
Right.
I feel like it's pretty simple, and that was the big disappointment for me as far as a fight goes.
Yeah. The most complicated thing about her, the biggest twist, is the fact that she puts up these curse pylons that are essentially big area denial, things that you can either fight and take out, or just try and figure out where you can, where it's safe to stand. And that'll complicate things, especially if she puts a bunch around her, because where you want to be is right up in her guts.
Yeah, because that's kind of her concept, is to keep you away with these cursed things, and then use her most powerful attack, which is this like laser beam attack, which will more or less like always one-shotted me, just because it would stun lock me.
Yeah.
So I would usually get one shot by attack if I couldn't get out of the way. It's easy to dodge, but if you're dealing with these other things, then I'll do it. What I always do is kill a couple curse pylons and then draw her towards that spot.
Yeah.
Where they were, and then I usually have enough room to circle around her.
Yeah.
Because you kind of manipulate her positioning.
Mm-hmm. I just load up on enough curse resistance stuff to make it not a big deal.
Take it through.
Yep.
Yeah. Also a thing, and this would probably be Breeze with that hollow skin that you can get from the Iron King.
I can tell you, Gary, it totally is.
Yeah, yeah. Imagine. So like, you just can't be cursed, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense. I've never gone back here and fought her after the DLCs. I've always fought her before the DLCs. So I've never done that. But
yeah. And these curse pylons also make it really difficult for Benhart and Vengarl to make that much of a difference here. So I pretty much always throw the first fight with her if I still have one of them around, because the boost in health she gets by them being there is greater than what they can do before they die. In my
especially
experience.
if they got weakened by the Thorn Watcher and Defender.
Yeah.
If you fought them right afterwards. It's kind of like, I like this back-to-back boss fight things. Like when you're co-oping here, it's really fun to help somebody with Thorn Watcher and Defender and then watch them fight Nashandra. And you can tell it's their first time doing it if they watch the cutscene.
Yes.
And that's kind of fun. Like, it's like, oh, this is fun. Like I'm helping this person through their first time with this.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of satisfying. But yeah, she just kind of has like scythe swipes other than that. And then like an AoE. Like she's very like, it's very much like Ilana. Which is without the summons.
Yeah.
But like the kind of like distance, here's a distance attack, here's a AoE to keep you away from me, here are some close range swipes.
Yeah.
Like there's just not very much to it. The design is also like feels a little bit over the top.
Her visual design, you mean?
Yeah. Like a little bit. Like I like it as like here's an erotic skeleton priestess. Like I'm that. But like
it's a Gary seeking missile.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's all three things I love. But the whereas like Nito, I think because of like the kind of shadow and kind of cloaked and hunched over kind of perspective of him, made a person made out of skeletons look a little bit understated. This is like just puts it all out there,
right?
In a way that's like a little bit like feels mildly over the top.
Yeah,
to me,
it's overstated it in your face, and it might have something to do with her nature as a seductress, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, it's not bad. It just kind of, it's just big.
Yeah.
And especially after the sadness of Gwyn, but then again, like the corollary in this game for that is the Vendrick fight, not the end boss.
Yeah. So her motivation, like as she walks in, the line that she drops is, brave undead, you have proven yourself to me. Now be one with the dark, right? Like, haha, there's like her tongue is firmly in where her cheek would be if she had one.
It's firmly in cheekbone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And saying, oh, you've proven yourself to me by effectively, breaking it for me, hero. Good job.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah. That's a TV trope.
Yep.
Reference. I caught that. But I mean, the fact that I knew it means I'm as complicit as you are.
Yep.
So we talked about that. It used to be that you can check the phases of like shit that we persecute on this show. Like on this show and Watch Out Fireballs, where it's like a couple months TV tropes and then Reddit and then Gamergate.
Yep.
Like those are the things that we will make fun of on the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good callback to the days when we used to. Now TV trope seems quaint.
Yeah, I know, right? Like it's just a bunch of people's fan fiction.
Yeah, who cares? Yeah. Keep going at it, you brave weirdos. In the face of all this other shit, like, oh, there's actual tons of child pornography and like, on 8chan.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
shit.
Huh.
Yeah, do it. If you want to have a crush on a fox,
go for it. You know what? Just go off and be happy.
Yeah, exactly. What
Get off and be happy.
The privacy of their own beaver dam is none of my business. But
Angry Beavers fan fiction. Yeah. So, but yeah, she is a skeletal seductress lady, and she's here trying to get into this throne, and you pretty much dispatch her without any real ceremony or pomp and circumstance. Like she just goes down.
Yeah, like any of the other, daughters of Manus.
Mm-hmm.
That you fight so she dies, and you get her soul, which gives you some really great items.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't used the Scythe of Want, but the Bow of Want and the Chime of Want are both really good.
Yeah.
As items.
Yeah. And if you haven't played the DLC and you don't have kind of this extra exposition around her nature, her soul and the item descriptions on whatever you derive from her soul are the things that kind of confirm her nature as a fragment of Manus, right? Like as a creature of the abyss, like it, seals that deal.
Yep, it says that she was made of the pieces of Manus, and she was made of the smallest piece, which is precisely why it was the first one to grow into consciousness,
right,
or what have you. Which again, a-okay, works for me. And then so you just kind of stand around for a while, which I love that bit where it's like, oh, there's something else to do, huh? Mm-hmm. Like I had a real oh geez, all right, there's more. Just because I love it, but I was also that Aldea, we get to go to Aldea's Keep reveal in this game did feel like we'd already done enough. But then you get this ending cinematic, and the it's essentially the golems now bow to you.
Right.
The golems are yours now, and in a way that thematically, without directly recalling the Age of Darkness ending from Dark Souls 1, where the different the serpents bowed to you. Right. The golems kind of turn themselves into a human bridge to allow you to get to the throne of Want. Yes.
And I mean, it's implied by the fact that, they don't do this when you don't have the giant's kinship, that that was the missing piece that you know, that's what you needed to bring to this.
Yep. Yep.
You walk across their backs, and the doors to this kiln. This is a kiln. It's like a little dome-shaped structure. Open up, and it reveals this throne that like Anne Orlando architecture is designed for two different sizes of person.
Yeah, which is interesting because the one, the idea that because we're trying to figure out what was stolen from the giants. This could be it. It was originally giant sized as far as the seating and got carved down to Vendrick. However, Vendrick is big enough now, like the Vendrick you fight. When you go find his soul and stuff, it's on a little chair though. Mm-hmm. So the idea that maybe Vendrick has changed sizes somehow is in play as well. I don't know why there is a carved out smaller chair within the chair. Most importantly, you can wear whatever outfit you want for this cutscene.
Yes, you can.
So, it happens in games. So put on your best fashion souls here. You can look as goofy as you want.
Yeah. I think you can also be as hollow as you want too.
Yeah. You can be incredibly hollow. You can be a gross corpse king. Essentially, then you look like the old monk.
Oh yeah.
Sitting on that chair as a zombie hot dog.
Nice. And throughout all of this, you're getting some, voiceover from the Emerald Herald, right? And I'll play that now.
You who link the fire. You who bear the curse. Once the fire is linked, souls will flourish anew, and all of this will play out again. It is your choice to embrace or renounce this. Great Sovereign, take your throne. What lies ahead, only you can see.
And the thing, I read a lot of people complaining about this online because it doesn't end with a choice at this point. And to me, I actually liked that.
Right.
Because the choice linking the fire is you playing some more. And you ending, it is you don't play Dark Souls 2 anymore. The choice in Dark Souls 1, the new game plus cycle makes it feel futile. Mm-hmm. The fact that and we talked about that a lot. I think that the new game plus cycle actually does feature into the Dark Souls 1 story. The fact that no matter what you do, you just wake up in the asylum.
Right.
And this gives it a sense of having reaching into the real world and Spec Ops, the only way to win is not to play kind of style makes it a little thematically more sound, I think.
Yeah.
To that idea of ending the cycle. Like the Dark Souls universe is the cycle. If you want to end the cycle, you just turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And I can get into that.
I'm wondering how much of a difference it makes whether or not you choose to light it or not light it, makes for like the broader world in this too. Because if you don't light it, you know, will the flame actually go out? Or is this just like the dull ember says, its natural state that it's just always going to be like just about to go out? And Nashandra was probably going in there to, you know, take it away. And even if you don't relight it, you're still keeping it in the, you know, the current curse state.
Yeah. And if you get into the meta part of it, like if you turn, you'll never know what it's like when it's out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it exists in its ember, because the Dark Souls game and that point of drama and conflict is when it is an ember.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when it says this is the natural state, that's the natural state of the game.
Right.
It's the only state in which Dark Souls 2 can exist,
Mm-hmm.
is the ember is about to go out and there's all this attendant conflict.
Yeah.
With that.
There's something cool about this that wasn't unlocked until I watched Vati's explanation of the you know, the broader story, which is like why the flame supports this notion of the cycle. Which is, you know, the flame, what it burns for fuel is the souls. And so everything you've gathered will be burned up and dispersed again. You know, as the Emerald Herald says, you know, souls will flourish anew and all of this will play out once again. Right. Mm-hmm. So this actually puts the souls back out there to, you know, unhollow the people who have lost it, you know, to actually fill those vessels again.
Right. Right. For you to go back and kill again and do this again during the second cycle.
Right.
So, yeah, and then it's just credits, really beautiful credits music, which will probably be included in this episode somewhere, either over the admin or somewhere. But it's really great, and that's it. And then you can, you know, you don't go back to Things of Twix. You can immediately start New Game Plus if you want. You get to sit down at the fire and say Journey to Drangleic 2, and it's not it's a numeral, which makes it look like a movie title to me.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, and that's for now. That's Dark Souls 2. Again, like I don't feel the need to apologize for it because it's not our fault. But this episode has been less, or this season has been less conclusive and more wishy-washy, just because there have been these kind of dangling things. So, like, we're going to revisit all of this stuff once we play through Scholar of the First Sin and see if it changes everything.
Right.
Like we're not going to do a whole season on like here's the Lost Bastille, but with one extra NPC. You know. It'll probably be a long episode that hits all the articulation points and then how it casts back on the theming.
Yeah. And that might be the true conclusion of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of the generality stuff we got out of the way just in the first part, just like it is like, so put yourself thought experiment, there's nothing else coming down the pipeline. Like, where would you land on this?
I'd be a little disappointed.
Yeah.
Just okay. So if we're here right now, and they've already put out this DLC that adds so much into it, I'm kind of disenchanted with the idea of like, even this, is not a finished product when it's put out there. The fact that our interpretation of it is kind of being run through the ringer so much, it is disappointing is the only word that I can say about it. I don't think it's bad. I just think that them not putting out something complete enough to commit to and then just kind of like not committing to it speaks to either a lack of consideration on the part of the team that put this out or a lack of faith in any kind of conclusion that they could have like come to.
Right.
And so that to me is, where I derive any disappointment from this, from this ending from, right?
Yeah.
Even though, like I said, those abstract bits, from the simplistic interpretation of, you need to become the king so you can stop the evil queen, like et cetera, up to these abstract notions of, the want and desire and the way power, interacts with people and the way people interact with power. And this notion of like how constructive can these cycles be? Is each one, a limited, just it's all going to break out the same, or are you going to carry something more useful forward? And that is the way we proceed to a better world. I don't know, like all of that, like all of those questions are satisfying to me, but only in the way that like I can interpret that and internalize it. As something that exists outside of me and outside of the way that I turn these things over in my head, it is unsatisfying.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I'd like say like a milder version of that. Like I wouldn't say it's unsatisfying. It's just less satisfying than I would like.
And that's what I mean. Like,
yeah, no, I know. I'm just throwing in a caveat, because there's the weird, like, when the huge kind of backlash against Dark Souls 2 started, I felt like everyone kind of forgot, like, the standard by which video games are judged, and just changed everything to Dark Souls. Like, Dark Souls the original Dark Souls 1 is a sea-changing, like, video game.
Right.
Like, it is literally like it's probably like, if I don't consider it when I think of my favorite game, it's just because I just assume like it's just always there.
Yeah.
It's because I'm taking it for granted as this thing that is like, we've committed, tens and tens of hours of this show to studying it. And like, I watch video, like it is life-changing. Like it is a really important game. And that is an impossible bar to clear, for something like, even down to where, like, as excited as I am for Bloodborne, like, I still feel like if we're comparing everything to how, like, whole and perfect Dark Souls is, like, I am prepared for that to be possibly unsatisfying too, or less satisfying. Yeah. So by the standard which video games are judged, like, in a vacuum, Dark Souls 1 did not exist. This would also spur the show. Right. Like this is enough. This is a text rich enough to support what we do, and would also be mind blowing.
And we have to continue having a conversation about this. If everything can be shut down by it's not as good as Dark Souls, therefore blah, like, the show can't exist. Yeah. And like, we would never run into and talk about the things that delight us about, like, what is good endemic to this product, while also keeping in the back of our mind that it does exist in a broader context.
Yeah. And like not only would we not get the good stuff, but like, we haven't even talked about the play. Like, this is all like thematic wanky stuff, and games are primarily like vehicles for play. And like, that is, in this game, is amazing. Like, there are a couple, like, I feel like it is just Dark Souls 2 has more stuff. So there are some things that are not as solid as Dark Souls 1. Like, I feel like Dark Souls 1 has fewer bosses, more of them kind of mattered. However, by volume, like, there is as much. I think that Dark Souls 2 is probably a little bit better play wise. Like, the different options you have for builds, like, all that stuff is kind of is richer and a little bit better than Dark Souls 1. And like, if that aside, like, we're going to talk about Lords of the Fallen for the show, and that's why, I mean, minor spoilers, like, that's why I like Lords of the Fallen, because it is still like, it's really, really good play. Because that, if you would start talking about that story, so it's just like there's so much to that does it well. It's just like my expectations are through the roof, and it is. So I'm a little less satisfied. If this was the only thing that came out, there was no Scholar of the First Sin, I'd be like, yeah, it's amazing. The story is not quite as cohesive as Dark Souls 1, but it has some really cool bits in it. Yeah. Which is that's way above my standard for liking a video game. Like, I like games that do way less than that. Right. Yeah.
And so we have to recognize that when I say, I'm disappointed or it's unsatisfying, we are grading on a hella steep curve.
Yeah, it's amazing curve. Like, it is like the steepest curve that's ever been. It's like a 90-degree curve.
It's a wall. We're grading on a wall.
It is a curve what is a wall.
Yes.
Just because Dark Souls 1 is just, the be all end all of games.
Yep.
So yeah, I would be mildly unsatisfied with it. I'm also like, it's doing something right in that it has engendered a curiosity in me. Like, those cool bits do make me, like, there's something to be said for the fact that, like, two things I want to say, like, to its credit is, like, one, we want those connections really badly. Right. So, like, the questions it's asking, or the answers it's giving, or, the questions it's asking really are interesting enough that, like, I'm still invested. And I know not everyone is at this point, but I'm still really invested and want to know what they do. Yeah. Like, I'm very excited for Scholar of the First Sin. But two, like, when you talk about adding the DLC and that bespeaking a lack of confidence in the player base or in their narrative, I think it's probably the latter. But I'm glad they addressed it.
Me too.
Like, it does have that lack of confidence, but, like, I have a lot of respect for, like, admitting a fuck up. And like, if they're doing that, like, I can't, that's great.
Yeah. That's admirable, right?
But yeah, that's adult of you. And video games don't always do that. But I like it when video games do.
Yeah, and just I don't know. I feel like a little some of the ways that Dark Souls 2 has fallen short, especially in the player backlash, has kind of cast a different light on this this season compared to other seasons of the show that we've done. Dark Souls, Demon Souls, and the other ones, and just in some of the chatter that I've read, like something that's come across is that we've been less thorough, or that we have rushed our coverage of this. to a certain extent. And I'm not quite sure how to interpret that, to be honest, because we've dedicated a great deal of time to it. But I wonder if that just speaks to the fact that there is not as much evidence to kind of back up some of the theories, or that we haven't gone too far into those negative parts of it. This is just me turning an eye back on this past season of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I that is true. I think that part of it, and we talked about this before, is like we went into Dark Souls 1 as it was an established and like, thoroughly mined text. Like not that I feel like we actually will contribute a little bit to the body of knowledge of Souls, but like part of what we do is I'm interested in everyone's theories about this stuff. There is a part of like, I feel like that's part of the Souls lore experience is processing other people's theories and kind of coming up with your own.
Right.
When there's less of that out there, it's harder to do.
Yeah.
But then I also think that Dark Souls 2 just doesn't support it quite as well.
Right.
I like, and it's funny too rushed because we've spent a long time on this season.
Yes, we have.
It doesn't feel rushed to me.
Yeah. I think that rushed, just like what I've seen in relation to like Bloodborne is people want us to like wait 6 months and then start Bloodborne, which I don't think we can do.
Yeah. I don't, necessarily want to do that.
Right.
Like we can always revisit too. Like if stuff comes up and we can revisit this and we will revisit, we will revisit this. We can revisit Bloodborne and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Like, and this is not to paint people who have the response to the show has been really positive. Like, it's not like everyone just be like, "You assholes have rushed," da da da. But like, I can't. That criticism doesn't have that much. Like, I'm open to feedback, but also I don't know what else we would do.
Yeah.
Again, we're just dudes.
Yep.
And with opinions on video games. Not to sound too defensive, but we do our best, and that's good enough for almost everybody.
Yep.
So.
So, but I mean, we've got some time to kill, but until Bloodborne comes out, and this is all going to turn over in our heads as we proceed, and I think that is why we have the appendices, that's why we have the errata, and that's why we always have the flexibility to, when we decide that we have something else to say about this, come back to it.
Yeah, yeah. It's not a good thing to make up your mind necessarily. Like it feels good, but it's not inherently a good act.
Right. Like
it is okay to be open to new. I mean, it's mandatory to be open to new evidence and new things, and to keep considering. That is I think that we in our culture, and this is broader. This isn't something that like specific fans of the shows have done, but like we overvalue
certainty.
Yeah, certainty. 100%. Like certainty is like this weird,
virtue.
Like a virtue, and it's not. Like it's really not. Uncertainty is a virtue. Like don't be certain, and don't least of all be certain of yourself. Because like I don't feel the same thing 2 days in a row. And like when I think back, like man, one of my old student workers got a Kanye West tattoo, and it says "In Jesus We Trust." And I just had this thought, like say what you will about Kanye West, but like I'm so glad I didn't get a tattoo of a band I liked when I was 20.
Oh yeah.
Like that's not okay. Like that's terrible. And everybody in the office was making fun of her and stuff. And I was just like, I didn't want to make fun of her, but I was just thinking like, there's a period in your life before you realize how mutable you are. And when you are sure of everything, and that is like the late teens, early 20s. Yeah. And like that's such a stark contrast to the way I exist now, when I'm sure of nothing.
Yeah. And that exists, here specifically too. You did that great post about being on the record for the backer blog, right? Like everything we say, I guarantee I'm not proud of everything I said, even last week.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, and it's weird for people. I like to think that people just kind of inherently understand that. But then every once in a while you run into somebody who will take you to task for something and like somehow think that we exist outside of humanity because we put out a publication, and that like it's, and other podcasts get it way worse than we do. Like,
oh yeah,
like, I really
we are
emphasize
so lucky.
that by and large, like 99.9% of people listening to this are absolute sweethearts and are like the nicest people in the world. And I love all of you. And it just happens very rarely, but I'll read like comments on other people's podcasts and stuff. And people are just like, you said this, but then in episode 243, you struck the rib cage twice and produced two different successive tones.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a person you're talking to, dog.
Yeah.
Like, chill the fuck out.
And I will say, anybody who has brought that directly to us has been an absolute sweetheart about it.
Yeah.
You know, like just like saying, hey, maybe next time, you know, like here's something I noticed about this. I still love the show. And, you know, by and large, our fans are complete sweethearts. So
And it's not inherently like you have to love the show.
Right.
It just, we're not bad people for not doing that the way that you want to. Like, if you don't like it, it's fine. But the and we want to hear the criticism and stuff, and people have been sweet, and that's the way to do it. And I think that, like, the only thing that, you know, that I think speaks well of us is that, like, it's like we consider it. You know, like, we're not the, you know, this isn't the original game, the game Angry Boys who are just like, no, Sega fucking sucks, and the story dropped the mic. You know, like, no, it's like, oh, that's, you know, I know we try to be adult about it.
Yeah,
we're the adult contemporary of podcasts. We're like the NPR of podcasts.
We've gotten in trouble for saying that we're adults.
Yeah, that's true. But we are. In this case, this is something I consider to be adult.
Yeah,
and I'm into. So I don't know. I don't know where that came from. Is it anticipatory?
I don't know. I don't know. Like it's just, and I think for me, you know, I'm in this semi-defensive, insecure state because, you know, we are going to have to, like, I think more quickly than we expected to reevaluate a lot of what we've talked about over the past, what has effectively been a year.
Yeah.
Right. You know, like at this point with the future so uncertain about like what's going to happen to this text as they change and shuffle stuff around, like there's a certain sense that we've thrown a lot of, you know, good time after bad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so no matter how much fun we had and no matter how many great guests we talked to and how much, you know, joy we took in playing this game and, you know, taking it apart, you know, that can all, you know, be taken away from us. Like there is the sword of the scholar of the first sin is hanging over us as we speak.
Yep. And they were also on the verge of doing it again with Bloodborne, where like there's, you know, that's a brand new thing and there's less known about, which is like an amazing feeling, but also opens us up to the same kind of criticism. So the people who don't like that about us are going to also not like it for Bloodborne. Yeah. That's fine. Like, I mean, we just spilled a bunch of words just being like, saying like, if you like it, great. If not, also okay.
Yep.
You know, so the, I don't know if that whole rant was necessarily necessary, but it is something that I thought about when we have gotten criticism or feedback about the show. That is something that kind of goes through my head, and not in a mean way. Like nobody's unfair to call us out. Like you should call us out. Yeah. Just know that, like, you know, just dudes. What are we doing before Scholar of the First Sin?
Well, the next episode is going to be a brief special about New Games Plus.
Yes. Yep. So we're talking about the point. Again, we're not going to do the whole season again. Like, here's the Lost Bastille, but this guy has more hit points. We are just going to be hitting the points of articulation and talking a little bit, I think, about how this game handles New Game Plus versus Dark Souls 1 and versus kind of other games. And that's a concept. It's going to be another short episode, most likely. But that's what's happening because we do have to do a little bit of kindling.
Yes.
Because we really want to do Scholar before Bloodborne.
Right. After our New Game Plus, we're going to begin a new season of the show, which I am going back and forth on calling Influences and Imitators. Yeah. We're going to look at 3 games that kind of hold a mirror up to other games and kind of appropriate some mechanics from them. So specifically, first off, 3D.Game Heroes. What happens when a From-aligned developer decides to provide a loving homage to Zelda whole scale?
Yeah, homage is too weak of a word.
Yep, I know.
For this. It is like, if you like Zelda 1, you will like 3D.Game.Heroes.
Yep.
And I do like Zelda 1.
Yeah, and
so
I like 3D.Game Heroes.
Yeah, it's great. After that, we're doing Shovel Knight, which is one of my favorite games of last year and is such a goddamn endless joy. And that is like an indie platforming version that kind of synthesizes some Dark Souls mechanics with that kind of tough NES platformers that obviously were an influence for Dark Souls.
Yeah. And then after that, we are going to be playing Lords of the Fallen.
And we're doing that as a multi-part, not quite a full season, but we're going to do that as 3 episodes, plus 1 episode for your responses and such. And it is, there's not as rich a lore and everything like that, but it is, I feel like, mechanically complicated enough to support that. And that is if Souls are a genre now, this is the first game that's coming out in the Souls genre,
right?
Because it owes so much.
Yeah. So for a while, this show is going to turn into Watch Out for Fireballs. And we hope that you're patient with that if you prefer the Bonfire Side Chat approach to the WAF approach. But I'm really excited to play and talk about these games.
Yeah, and we're gonna tie them into Soul stuff too.
Oh yeah,
like it's not going to be purely like Watch Out for Fireballs. And this season is guestless. It's just going to be me and Cole because it's hard. It's I could reach out there and try to find somebody who like really loves Shovel Knight to go through it, Watch Out for Fireball style with us, but like. Who's got time in the day for that? And like, I know a lot of people who do like that game, but I'd rather just keep it simple scheduling wise and concentrate on lining people up for Bloodborne.
Exactly.
So, and in the meantime, if you'd like to, you can rate and review us on iTunes. Who are these defensive assholes who keep saying that they're just people? 1 star. Please don't do that. Maybe you can do whatever you want. But you can rate and review us on iTunes, or you can go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv if you want to support this show. And we've bypassed our Bloodborne tier, so that's going to help us pay for Bloodborne and PS4s. Neither of us are planning to buy, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
So thank you guys very much.
Yeah. And then the Facebook group is always lively and hopping. That is facebook.com/bonfiresidechat. You can join in the conversation there and see some cool links that people drop off.
Yeah. And head to Duckfeed.tv for other shows and blogs and all kinds of other stuff that's worth your time. We firmly believe.
Yes.
So, and that's about it. Sorry about that weird tone. this took part way through. I think that is like, again, like every once in a while, something like that has been kind of brewing. And it is just it has to have an escape valve of some kind.
Yeah, and I think that it belongs there to a certain extent. As we close out Dark Souls 2, we also need to close out how we feel about how we did in talking about Dark Souls 2.
Yeah, and for the most part, I feel pretty positive about it.
Me too.
Like it is, I don't feel bad about. I feel good about what we've done with what was available. So, and both available in the text and what was available when we came to the text.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I would like to thank everybody who has been a guest on this season. If they're sticking around, if you're listening, your voices added a lot, and it was fantastic getting to know all of you. And I look forward to having some of you back.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you everybody. Thank you everybody who will be on. Thanks to everybody who listens. Thanks to everybody who is on the Facebook page. Everybody who's written in. All of that stuff like that is so ridiculously appreciated.
Yes.
It is a brand new. We're recording this on New Year's Day. So it is a brand new year. Last year has been great for us, and this year will hopefully be better for us and everyone.
Right.
So
yeah.
I
think that's about it.
Yeah. So what should they do until next time?
They should seek misery. No, wait. Seek strength.
Oh yeah.
And let the rest follow.
Let the rest follow. Awesome.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon